Hello and welcome to Behind the Screen. We are here on the Iconic Production channel. I am JM, and this is just a show where we sit around and we talk about gaming, game design, game theory, games that we love, and interact with the chat. I, I assume we have a good time because people keep showing back up. Bob, Padre, good to see both of you this morning. So, let's get right into today's topic. Back in the day, in the when I first got into gaming, I very quickly I think I've shared the story. I had a Palladium Heroes Unlimited book that someone at my middle school gave me because they had no clue what it was, and I made a ton of characters but couldn't make heads or tails out of the game. It wasn't until a little bit later that I started playing GURPS for the first time, and GURPS is the reason that I became a GM. The first session, somebody was like, "Hey, do you want to play a role playing game?" And I was like, "Sure." We were at lunch. I didn't know what it was, and it was so painfully bad that I went home and was like, "I don't know what role playing is, but I think I can do a better job at it than this kid who introduced us to GURPS." And so the next day at lunch, I took my hand at running GURPS, and that was basically it. And eventually I understood how to play Heroes Unlimited, and then a buddy of mine got me into Rifts, and that was a game that I ran for almost a decade. Why am I talking about Rifts when the bottom of the screen says that this is a review of Torg Eternity? Because like many things in our lives, it's very easy to get polarized. And at my high school, there was hey, Rook, good to see you. Thank you, sir. That is as always. Just thank you for your generosity. Right, you are either a Smashing Pumpkins fan, or you got shoved into lockers because you were a Pearl Jam fan. Clearly, I was a Smashing Pumpkins fan back in the day. You either played Riffs or you played this game called Torg, and there never did the two sort of interlap or overlap because both games kind of had a similar feel to it. Um, I know, imagine liking both things. And guess what, Bob? Today I can reconcile the paradox of liking both things. Although my Riffs gaming has become Savage Worlds based as opposed to Palladium based. So I didn't really play a lot of Torg in its heyday. In fact, I knew nothing about Torg aside from it had some similarities to Rifts, and I was invested in Rifts until I went to a Gen Con where I was helping Ulysses man their booth, and they had two things. They had a little one-page Torg is coming, and they had a giant poster of the Gaunt Man. And literally, people would rubberneck. They would run into people. They saw the Gaunt Man, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, are you bringing Torg back?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess." And so, Padre, glad to know that you love Torg. This is going to be a fun discussion then, I think. So I got into Torg Eternity as it was coming out. And then we ended up running, if you go over to the Ulysses International channel, you'll see that we have a ton of, like, I've been running Torg for years now, Torg Eternity. I ran the Horseman campaign, I ran the Storm Knights campaign, I ran a couple of Bureau G one-shots, I've run several linked adventures for a group called the B Team, and then we're starting next Tuesday, because my business trip got moved, we're starting next Tuesday into this new Istanbul campaign on the Ulysses International channel. If you're at all interested in Torg, if this review sounds awesome, please jump over on Tuesday nights at 7:30 Central and watch us play Torg. We have all of our Session 0 and Day 1 shots up on the Ulysses International YouTube channel. You can go check them out there. Oh man, Bob's first game was Marvel the RPG. That is awesome. So fun fact, the guy who designed Torg, Greg Gordon, also worked on the DC superhero game from Mayfair Games. So, and he's always in the chat on Torg's Day night, so you should come hang out. Um, it does have some of the biggest ideas. You have this idea of, so Torg. What is Torg? It's the same whether you're talking about OG Torg or sort of Torg Eternity, which is the review we're going to be talking about today. And I've got some cool things that I want to talk about Torg and show off, especially with Bob here, because I want Bob to come on the show in a couple of weeks and let me do a tour of Foundry for him in the Warhammer world. But we'll come back to that in a moment. Padre, it would be great to see you there if you're able to join us there. So Torg, and if you follow me on Ulysses International, you'll know that I say this a lot. Torg is, imagine our world today. Good job. Well done. But a world where John Wick and Die Hard are documentaries as opposed to action movies. And so this action-heavy Earth is invaded by other realities. And when they invade, they actually overlay and rewrite part of our world to match theirs. So the east and west coast of the U.S. is invaded by this cosm, this reality called the Living Lands, and it is a very low tech. Think like the Savage World from X-Men, or Land of the Lost. So there's dinosaurs, there are dinos, these kind of reptilian men. Your clothes always tear, but in the most attractive way possible. Scandinavia and the UK are overlaid with Isle, and that's a high fantasy, like dwarves in magitech armor, elves riding dragons, sorcery, that sort of thing. The north coast of Africa and the Middle East is overlaid by the Nile Empire, which is this 1930s pulp superhero world. Spain and France are overlaid by the cyber papacy, which is like take Shadowrun and someone's really bad interpretation of the medieval church and mash those together. Russia and parts of Eastern Europe are invaded by Tharkold, which is essentially like Mad Max meets Hellraiser. Then you have the India-Pakistan region that is overlaid by Orosh, which is Victorian horror, and then Pan-Pacifica takes place in China, Japan, that region, and is a almost like altered carbon level genetic modifications, that sort of thing. So you have all of these realities that invade, and you play as a Storm Knight. You carry your magic or your reality with you, and so you're one of like the 1% of people who don't forget that they're not from the original cosm when it invades. And so it's this war about hope. It's this war about possibility. The High Lords, these other cosms, want to strip mine our Earth of its potential energy and use that to fuel their own apotheosis. And so if you listened to my Mage review last week, you'll know belief and hope are two very important things to me to like bring forward in a game. So that's Torg Eternity. It is, as Padre said, full of big ideas, and I think we're seeing in Torg Eternity, at least from what I've talked with Ristar about, there's a lot more. So Rifts players, you had high tech and high magic, and it was all sort of mixed together. O-Torg, original Torg, had a little bit more of the, you have chocolate and you have peanut butter, but they don't get mixed together. And we're seeing a lot more of that kind of in the Torg Eternity line. Now, other things that are really cool about this game. The skills are fantastic. It takes a little bit of getting used to the skill system. The number on your character sheet is the most important thing. So if you have a 14 in melee combat, that's the most important thing that you need to know about your melee combat. When you roll a d20, it actually only provides tiny swings to the final value, as opposed to massive swings like you get in like D&D or 13th Age or something like that. Additionally, this game has a ton of cards, and so that's, I don't want to say it's a negative, but if you go to buy Torg, buy the Torg Rule Book. It's an all-in-one rule book. You get character creation, setting, monsters, and you need to buy a box of cards. And so the Torg card set comes with three types of cards. You have Cosm cards, everyone gets one, and it sort of reinforces the rules of the Cosm. So when you go to Orosh, there's a card called Jump Scare, and when you play it, the GM rolls a die, and I think it's on evens, it was just like a cat knocking something over. And on odds, it was actually like a monster that jumps out and attacks you. And then after the card resolves, everyone gets the meta currency. So sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, but they reinforce the feeling of the world. Players get destiny cards, which allow them to affect the outcomes of the rolls, but also affect the narrative of the game. You can play an idea card if you're stuck and the GM has to give you an idea. You can play a romance card to turn one of the NPCs in the scenes into a romantic link. You can play the martyr card. It's my favorite card. A player can say, my character dies, but I achieve this goal. Which, if you've played any games with me, you gotta know that that's something that's really like important to me. And then it uses this weird deck called the drama deck for initiative. The drama deck says you flip a card. It says, okay, heroes go first and they get this bonus for penalty, and villains go second. And here's an approved action. And if you do the approved action, instead of just attacking, you get a bonus. You get more destiny cards. So it encourages you to think outside of the box and say, I just shoot the bad guy again. Additionally, it introduced me to something called interaction skills, which is something I am now bringing into all of the other games I design. So in Torg, you can attack someone, right? Just like every other role-playing game. I rolled a hit. If I hit, I do damage. But they have 4 skills that allow you to do other things to enemies. So let's say you are flying a small snowspeeder, and you are trying to take out a large, let's call it an all-terrain armored transport, just for picking something out of my head. Well, that all-terrain armored transport may be too tough for any one of you to take down. However, Torg has an ability called Maneuver. You're not trying to hit the target, but if you roll well, you can actually make the target easier to hit. Maybe you fire, a grappling cable and maneuver around the target to bind up its legs. You can actually remove NPCs, as Ristar said, completely if you roll really well. If they're not reality rated, you can you can intimidate a mook off the board. You can taunt someone into a disadvantageous position. You can trick them, throw sand in their eyes, take time in the middle of combat to build a giant horse, crawl into the horse, and then leave the horse outside of the enemy's encampment. So there's just a ton of fun things. It is Gonzo, not in sort of the OSR kind of feeling of Gonzo, but in a literally anything can happen. My Tor group right now consists of a Winchester-esque hunter, a giant cybernetic Templar, a good demon that a la Hellboy, a Omar Sharif style movie star who is also a bridge player and now spy, and a resurrected mummy. That's pretty much a typical Torg group. So, hopefully, you can see how excited I am about Torg. There's a ton of people in the chat who are here because of Torg. They love Torg. And I figured one of the fun things I could do is I could show you another way to play Torg, which, Bob, you would love this. I just got the new Cosm that just came out, Orosh, and there are perks, which are like feats or talents that you can get, which basically say, hey, that really crappy thing that happened to you, I can make it go away. And you get corruption, and then maybe when your character dies, they come back as a werewolf or a vampire. Also, it introduced me to one of the coolest ideas for dealing with mythic monsters. There are nightmares in Orosh that if you kill them, they come back within another act or two, and they come back with more meta currency possibility, which allows you to roll and get larger numbers, and they come back with more XP, so the GM gets to add things to the creature. You actually have to find out, and you have to investigate this monster and figure out what are the circumstances of its origin, what does it love, what does it desire, what's a token from its old life, and what is its true death. And if you have all of those components, then you can finally slay a creature. And yeah, the corruption mechanics in Orosh, Bob, are spectacular. If you guys are looking in the chat, you'll see a lot of people talking about DSR. That's dramatic skill resolution. And essentially, it's from everything for like creating a ritual to destroy a magic artifact or to bypass a security. You can use dramatic skill resolution. You could simulate a whole heist with dramatic skill resolution. You basically come up with the steps that need to be done, and you use the cards to go forth. But Ulysses, and again, well, yes, I run Torg for Ulysses. This was a review that was requested by or voted on by the patrons of Iconic on the Discord channel. If you want to become a member of the Iconic Discord, jump over to patreon.com/iconicproduction. Join us. We have a lot of great discussions. But they also, so this is JM's personal review, not a sponsored review, if you will. But they also put out, if you like virtual tabletops, I've been getting more into Foundry. I have a lot of love for Fantasy Grounds, which I sold Bob on, and now I'm also looking into Foundry. So this is the Torg Foundry module. I've got a sweet background put together by none other than Mr. Bob Crumb himself, which just it's our background for our Torg game on the Ulysses International channel. So this looks awesome. So I'm not going to get into everything. I'm going to hit some highlights of this feature and also show you kind of how the game works. And I'll show you some of the things I like about Foundry, but I want to get Bob on to do a full review. So Bob, first of all, just so you see, you can upload music and it streams it to your players. So this Foundry requires a person to put the GM pays $50 to get the program. Everyone else logs in with a web address, and so this is everything that they see. So I thought I'd show off. So here is the Masked Crusader. This is from the Nile Empire, 1930s pulp superhero. Kind of lets me kind of show you how the game works. So you'll see across the top it has axioms. Axioms define what a world is. The Nile Empire has a magic of 14, a social of 20, spirit of 18, and tech of 20. So that tells us it's right about 1930s technology level, but it allows for miracles and magic spells because that's kind of where they're at. You only have 5 attributes: charisma, dexterity, mind, spirit, and strength, and that kind of pulls into your skills. So in Foundry, you've got your perks here, your gear. One of the nice things about Foundry, at most VTTs, like you can, if I click on the Mauser pistol, it tells me everything I need to know about it. And then if I want to make an attack roll with it, I just kick it over, the die kicks out, and it spits out. Oh, you can't see that. Let me make a change to this. I didn't think that through. Let me pull this down. Let me pull this over like this. Apologize to JD for the asymmetry, but we're gonna go with this. So if you look over here, it says this character rolled a Mauser pistol. They got their total at 10. They did 13 damage, which is the base damage of the weapon. But if you so as I said, you have ways to adjust the die roll, right? So you've got, if you want to spend a possibility, that meta currency, it allows you to roll another die and add it to the first die roll. And if it's less than a 10, it counts as a 10. So if you roll like a 9 twice, you would actually be at a 19. Well, it's got buttons just to do that. You can hit the possibility right there. All right, so now my action roll is 18, and maybe I want to add a bonus die of damage to this. It automatically kicks it around and tells you, and it keeps track in the cards for you, hey, here's what's being done. If you go back to perks and you want to say, hey, what does my brawler do? I can actually then put it in the chat for the GM or a player to say, hey, what does my perk do? Here's actually what it does. And then, skill rolls work just like they do in Fantasy Grounds, right? You click dodge and it spits it all out right there. But Torg has a lot of cards that it needs. And so I can create my pool of cards by hitting the hand and drawing my cards, and it gives me my Cosm cards. It gives me all of the cards that I need. So, and when you cursor over them, bam, look, there's the action card. What does it do? Well, it adds 3 to the total of my test. And you can either play it, you can show this card to everyone, or you can trade the cards, because in Torg, if I have an action and Bob needs it, I can give Bob that card and then he can play it. So there's a lot of functionality just kind of built right into this. You basically set up your scenes. So I've got a map here. This all comes preloaded with the Torg Foundry. So I have the 2 modules that they have out for Torg right now, which is the core game, and I have the Living Lands. So when you come over to the compendium here, you have all of your things here, so you can come down and say, all right, well, what scenes are available? Well, I've got my world map. I've got the GM screen. So if I come over to scenes, I can just drag the GM screen over, and I can view it, so my players aren't on it, but I can keep the GM screen open for myself. Let's activate that, see if that works. Come on. Well, we'll just activate this one and go back to this. You have all of the handouts from the game. Like here's the Delphi Council for North America. Here's the clans of the Living Land. The soundtracks are uploaded so you can instantly access them. There is a lot of really nice features in this game. And as Ristar pointed out, there is a free Torg Eternity character generator that you can download, and it will actually export your character in Foundry code, and you can just upload it into Foundry. So there's a lot of, and it's got all of the other things that you would expect from a virtual tabletop. You can chat in it just like any virtual tabletop. You can build you could actually build line of sight. So as the tokens are moving around, their own light sources are cut off by the walls if you wanted to do that. But for me, the big functionality is the fact that it automatically includes the bonus chart when you roll the die, and you have the cards which are necessary to play the game. So if you get the base Torg game and load that as an add-on, you can run in any Cosm and then just build things as you go along. And they do have like everything in here. If you go into Core Rule Book items, here's all of the weapons, here's all of the perks, here's all of the vehicles. They did a great job of kind of putting this together. I do wish it had a little bit more granularity in the rulebook items, because this item is just every weapon, every perk, every vehicle as a list. So if you aren't familiar with Torg Eternity, you're going to be searching through some things for a bit. But it's got all the archetypes preloaded in there as well, so you're more than able to just say, and I'm done. Like, just going to pick a pre-generated character and go for that. And yes, as Ristar points out, it does not have video integration. But for Bob and I, we don't use video integration. We kind of do that separately because Fantasy Grounds doesn't incorporate that either. But that has been my overview of Torg Eternity. If you want something that is very focused on action-oriented gaming, dramatic gaming, something that captures the scenes and the feel of kind of our favorite action movies, as well as a game that you can literally do anything in. You can fire a rocket launcher at a dinosaur. We had someone in one of our pre-stream games used a double-decker bus to run over a clockwork lion. These are all things that happen. We have an odd couple in our stream that is a cybernetic Templar holy knight and a reformed techno demon. It is a great game and is well worth checking out. I will be honest, when I first started with Torg Eternity, I read it, the book excited me, and when I got it to the table, it took a little bit for me to kind of get all of the parts moving in my head right. But once they did, I I have found that there is a certain, like, for action oriented investigation or dramatic games, there are a few games that have that fit that bill for me, as well as Torg, and the fact that you can constantly add your own cosms. So if you want to do a mashup of, like, if you want a cosm that is like the Disney Treasure Planet movie with, sky pirates and rocket surfboards, you can have that cosm. You could do Atlantis. You can do the old GURPS method of taking two source books off the shelf and mashing them together. It's spectacular. I really enjoy it. I'm grateful that I get to run the game on the Ulysses International channel, and that they support us doing that. So that is Kenosha, Wisconsin. So what are we taking? Like Ruffalo's Pizza and mashing it up with more cheese? Not entirely sure how we would make the Kenosha, Wisconsin cosm, but if anyone could do it, Bob and I could. So that's been this episode of Behind the Screen. We'll be back on Tuesday, where we're going to continue development on this Jackal's version of the werewolf. And we're really looking forward to that. Thanks to everybody who showed up on Tuesday and had input in there. And thank you for all showing up and learning about Torg. We're going to be doing another, next Thursday's episode will be another Behind the Screen review. Again, patrons are going to get to vote on it. Right now, I think Zweihander is the front runner, but I may add Ruin Masters in there too, and see if anybody wants to hear about that one. So check out all the other great shows that we have on the Iconic Production channel. We're going to be doing our next week, I believe, is our. Let me pull up my calendar. Next week is Exploring Glorantha, and the week after that is the third episode of the Grand Campaign. And on the 20th in the evening, that Sunday, we're going to be doing our first live show for season 6 of the Iconic Podcast, where we're going to explain what Gumshoe is and why you may want to check it out. So, thank you to everyone who's been in here. Ristar, Padre, Bob, always good to see you. Thank you to Rook again for his continued generosity and support of the show. And I will see all of you on Tuesday for more Behind the Screens. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay gaming. Have a good one.